Hi VC, it's Shelf Stacker, and I'm back for more. Got a great response to my first video. Thanks to everyone who watched it, everyone who commented, and to my subscribers. It's been a real shot in the arm, which is what we all need at the moment. I thought today I'd just show you 10 of the LPs I purchased last year, which I've played the most, some of my favourites for one reason or another. So let's get right to it. I think I'll do a rough countdown. It's not necessarily in an order of preference. So let's start with number 10. And that is this one, Triangle, who were a French band out of Paris, and they get described sometimes as psychedelic, but I can't hear any psychedelia in here whatsoever. But there is certainly a progressive vibe, sort of a slightly Canterbury sounds mixed with some jazz. Good album. I'm still a bit undecided on how much I enjoy it. There's a band inside. Excuse the glare. It's hard to put a handle on it. I'm not even convinced the band knew quite what sound they're trying to achieve. Like I say, sometimes it's jazzy, sometimes it's slightly proggy. And occasionally there's one track where they do a sort of weird cheesy 30s dance tune, which actually is better than that makes it sound. But yeah, I kind of cautiously recommend this one. Number 9. This is the Butterscotch Cathedral, and they are a neo-psych band, or were a neo-psych band. This came out in, let me have a look at my notes, I think it's 2015. Okay, they are from Tucson, Arizona, and feature former members of a sort of garage psych revivalist band called the Marshmallow Overcoat, who I haven't heard, but if it's anything like as good as this, it'll be worth checking out. This is very much psych pop, but leaning heavily towards the psych rather than the pop. It's got a sort of Phil Spector-esque production, which gives it a sort of murky, claustrophobic feel. It's got an authentic 60s sound, tons of sound effects, like seagulls and backwards cymbals and phased guitar and stereo panning, and it's a total trip. Not necessarily a good trip the whole time. It's pretty dark. There's one track that's more of a suite on side 2 called Lisa's Dream, which doesn't sound like Lisa's having a great time for a lot of that trip. But I have a great time listening to it. It's a superb album and thoroughly recommend it. Some great, squalling guitar on it. This sort of Farfisa organ, acoustic strumming. It's fantastic. Heartily recommend it, and it's dirt cheap on Discogs. And my copy's on black vinyl, but it's also available on butterscotch coloured vinyl, so maybe you get lucky and get one of those. Okay, number 8. This band Raven. And this album's recorded in 1976, but it didn't get released until 2013. This is limited to 500 copies on the Golden Pavilion label, and there's a kind of a hype sort of OB type deal going on there, where they're described as, think Primus meets Emerson, Lake and Palmer with a touch of Yes, Deep Purple, Rush and Dream Theater. No, not at all. I mean, they give the impression of being a bar band who are accomplished musicians who are living out their prog fantasies on this. It's got that real Midwestern, mid-70s feel. You can hear the Styx elements and those sort of high-pitched vocals, sort of bit of a yelp influenced by Geddy Lee, people like that. The Primus comparison, no way. Possibly the title track where there's a a bass solo, very short and tasteful bass solo, might be what's led them to make that comparison, but I can't hear it myself. But it's a really good album. I do keep coming back to this one, and it deserved its release, its belated release. It's really well worth checking out. And there's the band in their kind of 70s finery on the back. So yeah, if you're into sort of Midwestern pomp rock from the 70s, give that a listen. And again, it can be had cheaply on Discogs. Number 7, we have Horizont. And this album, great artwork. Love that. And the band there in nice matching Star Trek inspired costumes by the looks of it. This is a double album. It's synth laden space prog boogie, I suppose you could call it, with distinct elements of Thin Lizzy's riffing and twin leads, a strong Uriah Heep feel to it, and an even stronger rainbow influence because the guitarist had just got a Blackmore fixation. It's an ambitious album. It's quite bonkers because some of the synths are really cheesy, but I kind of love that because it makes it stand out so much. And their 3 previous releases, and 2 which I have, are much more sort of meat and potatoes, retro 70s rock. And they're great, but they don't really elevate themselves above all the other Scandinavian bands doing a similar thing. You know, the sort of Grand Magus and Graveyard and Spiritual Beggars. With this, the addition of the keyboards and the fact this is a concept album really makes it stand out. For me, it's all the better for it. The concept sort of seems to be based around the inhabitants of Earth looking to return to whatever planet they originally came from, and there's a helpful comic strip inside to illustrate that concept. So yeah, I would say that is well worth your time and effort to check out. It's a big surprise to me. I haven't heard a couple of their other albums which I liked. This was just they'd taken a chance, and it really pays off. I love that. Number 6, and that's Gin House. They were a band out of the northeast of England. The album came out in 1971. I think they came to attention through a sort of Battle of the Bands competition run by Melody Maker. They are fairly typical blues rock, goes prog. If you're familiar with Stray or the Groundhogs, you'll have an idea of what this lot sound like. Clean guitar sound for the most part, with distortion pedal sort of kicks in for the solos. Great bass and drum interplay, and yeah, overall musicianship is fantastic. They, if anything, they lack a killer song on the album. Sun in a Bottle, the final track, comes closest, and that has some elements of Wishbone Ash in the sort of harmony vocals and the guitar sound. There's some jazzy guitar chords and a really tasteful backwards guitar solo, which unfortunately fades towards the end, and it could have done with playing out for a lot longer. I'd love an original. This one's on Akama, and they've done a good job of reproducing the admittedly fairly amateurish artwork, and they've even reproduced the flap inside, a little wallet to keep the record in, which is a pain in the backside if you keep your records in plastic wallets like I do, because it makes it pretty inaccessible. But yeah, an original would be great, but the average price on Discogs is about 100 quid, so I shan't be getting one of those any day soon. And at number 5 we have Group 1850 and Agimo's Trip to Mother Earth. This was originally released in 1969 on the Philips label. They're a Dutch band. And this in fact is on Music on Vinyl. And it's a limited numbered reissue. It comes on particularly tasty, clear emerald green vinyl now. And if you are into your tripped out heavy psych, this is essential. It's an absolute psych monster. It's got elements of post Syd Barrett era Pink Floyd, Zappa, Brain Ticket, and almost sort of free jazz type elements. It's a concept LP, although the concept's completely gone over my head. And like I say, it's essential. It features acid fried guitar, manic drumming, saxophone, flute, crazed hallucinogenic poetry, and a bass player whose playing is off the scale. It is really superb, and this reissue sounds incredible. I mean, if an original fell into my lap, I might buy it, but I'm not in a rush to change this. They've done a great job of reissuing that. The only thing is, it's a 3D sleeve. Don't know whether you can make that out on the screen, but you don't get 3D glasses with it, which you would have done with the original. But very, very highly recommended. And number 4 is the debut from Kikigaku Moyo, or however that's pronounced. This came out in 2013. They're a Japanese psych rock band. There's no one in the band, as far as I know, called Kikigaku Moyo. And I looked it up in Google Translate, and it seems to think it means something like geometry. So this is Geometry's debut from 2013. The album sort of alternates, the tracks alternate between dreamy, mellow psych with a summery vibe, featuring harp and sitar and flutes and acoustic guitar, and heavier tracks like track 2 on the first side, which is faster. It features sort of synth squiggles, guitar that's feeding back, a sitar riff, and it comes across as almost like a heavy oriental Stone Roses with killer wah-wah guitar and spoken female vocals. So if that sounds like it's your bag, then knock yourself out. I think you'll enjoy it. Overall, the album's very atmospheric. There's sort of the sounds of dripping water, fragile sort of picked guitar, dreamy instrumental sections, and it comes thoroughly recommended. They're definitely a band that I'm going to delve further into their catalogue. So that's Kikigaku Moyo. Number 3 is Jonathan Wilson. Horrendous glare on the sleeve there, sorry about that. Comes in a very nice die cut sleeve with lovely artwork on the inners. It's a double album. And what else have we got in here? A lyric book in there. And I've been watching Jonathan Wilson's career for a number of years. Love his albums. Have all of them, apart from the first 2, which were CDR only releases and are impossible to get a hold of. And he's recently been out on the road with Roger Waters as his live guitarist, and I think that's obviously had an effect on it. It's rubbed off on his vocal phrasing in places on this album. But the album's quite different to some of the others in his catalogue anyway. He's always had a kind of Laurel Canyon, Americana vibe to his sound. Psych elements, bit of Neil Young in there, Pink Floyd. Always superb guitar playing. And this album, it's different. It's the same, but it's different. It's got much more of a cosmic country feel to it. And I held off buying it for a little while because all the reviews were mentioning country, and I just thought, oh, perhaps he's tipped over too far in that direction. I needn't worried. The cosmic element is very much there. The lead instrument is pedal steel guitar, combined on the whole with piano and acoustic guitar. In fact, electric guitar doesn't really feature much at all. I can think of one, you know, standout guitar solo on the whole album. Elsewhere, it's very low key. But the pedal steel is treated in a way that it has this big, dreamy, woozy sort of effect as you listen to it. I'm sure it must be put through some kind of an effect to get that cavernous, spacey sound to it, and it really works. It's a grower of an album. Admittedly, it didn't take too long to grow on me once I started listening to it, and I can't wait to see what he does next, because he's obviously an artist who doesn't want to, stand in one place for too long. So there you go. There's Jonathan Wilson and Dixie Blur. Thoroughly recommended. Okay, number 2, and it's Captain Beefheart with Clear Spot. And this is a UK original, which came just as a single card insert inside an embossed plastic sleeve, which is always rotting and falling apart. And there you go, it's on the brown Reprise labels. And this is a great album. I've so enjoyed listening to this year. It's produced by Ted Templeman, who's probably better known for producing Van Halen and the Doobie Brothers, I think. So not avant-garde acts by any stretch of the imagination. So I guess Captain Beefheart was going for a more commercial, mainstream sound here. And certainly it's more accessible than Trap Mask Replica or some of his other weirder albums. But by anyone else's standards, it's still pretty avant-garde. There are, commercial sounding tracks. Too Much Time is radio friendly. My Head Is My Only House Until It Rains. Great title. That's pretty off the wall, but that's tender and introspective. But it's beautifully done. And you've still got your moments of weirdness. Sun Zoom Spark sounds like the sort of ravings of some crazy vagrant on a night bus. The title track, it features really spiky, angular guitar riffs that I imagine are a huge influence on post-punk bands. And Golden Birdies, which is the final track, is like a minute and a half of poetry over a precision perfect sort of web of glockenspiel and guitar. So it's superb. I love it. It's an album I'm more likely to put on more often than Trout Mask Replica. It depends what mood I'm in. But I can see why the purists perhaps didn't take it to heart. But like I say, by anyone else's standards, it's still pretty out there. So yeah, that's my number 2 for the year. Number 1, and this is without a doubt the album I've played the most. I got the heads up on it from the Sea of Tranquility YouTube channel, and it is Blue Oyster Cult's latest, The Symbol Remains. Now, it's been 19 years since their last studio album, which was The Curse of the Hidden Mirror, and in that time lineups have changed. Alan Lanier died, unfortunately, so there's just Buck Dahmer and Eric Bloom left from the original lineup. But don't let that put you off if you're a fan. This is the best thing Blue Oyster Cult have done since Fire of Unknown Origin, probably. Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. I love this album. The guitars are typically excellent, as are the vocals. It's self-produced, and they've done a fantastic job of that. They've got a new keyboard guitarist guy called Richie Castellano, and he contributes lead vocals as well at times, most notably on a track called Tainted Blood, which, if we had a time machine and could go back to 1988, it would just be on constant rotation on MTV. It is such a huge track. It would be a huge hit back in the 80s, no doubt about it. All eras of the band are represented on this album. It never feels like a sort of a hodgepodge though. It really gels beautifully. The more you listen to it, the more it sounds like a proper band album. And it's got elements of the psych of the early albums. It's got that sort of heavy metal from their mid-period, and the AOR elements, the melodic rock elements from later albums like The Revolution by Night. The lyrics, as always, aren't straightforward. They're always thought-provoking. They're not all sci-fi though, like previous albums. They deal with social media, conspiracy theories, and that kind of thing. It's superb. Other tracks of note are Edge of the World, which has a killer chorus. It's a real mid-paced throbber with Eric Bloom singing about the second time he was abducted, and you just think, yeah, okay, I like where this is going. This is going to be a story worth hearing. And another superb track is The Alchemist, which is a gothic monster of a track, and you should check that out on YouTube or Spotify if you're not yet convinced. But this, my album of the year by a long chalk, and it's particularly fitting that it came out in 2020 as well, because that doesn't very often happen. It's my favourite album of the year is one that got released then. But buy it, you'll love it. Okay, that's my top 10 favourite albums that I bought and listened to this year. Right old mixed bag of stuff. Like I say, I've got a bunch of other ideas for videos brewing, and I hope to get back to you soon. In the meantime, thanks for those of you who've subscribed. Hopefully more of you will. And thanks for your kind comments and the great welcome I've been given to the VC. See you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.